Well, from grieving cats to dogs, fears of fireworks, because it's coming up to that time of the year again. Dr. Scott answering your questions. It's a This Morning Pet Clinic 5 to 11 with that one.
First, it's been over 40 years since he embarked on his music career. Now, Gary Numan is telling the story of his experience with fame in his new autobiography, which is out very, very soon. I love that picture on the front. Great cover.
It's called Evolution, not Revolution. So you get an R and then Evolution. Well, anyway, he'll tell us more about it because he's sitting there in Los Angeles, going to be joining him live very, very shortly. But first, let's have some music. See, kids, that's called electropop. When Ruth and I were in her 20s, early 20s, so we'd have been doing all that because of that man. Gary Numan, pleasure to see you, pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
And the thing is, Gary, I'm reading from the book that you regarded yourself so painfully shy that you had to invent a character to be on stage. Tell us more about that.
When I was doing pubs and clubs, and there's 10 people in the audience, I was so nervous I could barely hold a conversation. So sometimes a day or two before, it was absolutely crippled by it. And my dad took me to one side one day, a particularly bad one, and said, if you can't find a way of dealing with this, then this is a pretty bad career choice, really. So I can make sense. So I just tried. I did. I spent the next sort of year or so just thinking, what can you do? What can you do? And so I created personas, images, characters. And I know it sounds silly. It doesn't sound like it would make any difference at all because it's still you standing there. But it does. It does make a difference. You dress up. You put on the shield, if you like, in a way, or the bubble that is one. It makes you one step removed, and it's all up there, obviously. But
also, you were so young, Gary. You were so young, and a lot of people obviously were in bands, so they had kind of their band members to rely on for that support. But you were on your own, and were you 19, I think, when you got your first record deal?
Yeah, 19. The record company that I was signed to had no success before. I didn't have a manager. So you're pretty much out there on your own, really, trying to sort this stuff out.
Well, where we are today is just round the corner from where you were born and grew up. We are in Shepherd's Bush, and Hammersmith was your patch back in the day before you went to LA, California, all that sort of thing. What was it like growing up in Hammersmith?
I was born there. I didn't actually grow up in Hammersmith. I moved out to Heathrow area, so not far, but not quite in Hammersmith. And so I was a suburbs kid. Going into London was still. But the thing about Hammersmith is that you've got that venue there, Hammersmith Odeon or Apollo, whatever it's called now. We used to drive past that. Me and my friend, who was the bass player in the band, we would drive past that every time going to London for a night out or doing a gig or whatever. And that was always the thing. We'd always point it out and we go, one day, we're just going to play some little place, But that was and the fact that I was born there and that was a gig. For that reason, it became symbolic of the whole, attempt to become successful. That was the place I wanted to be playing at.
You became very successful, very, very successful. Very quickly, and we said you were very young. So how did fame sit with you?
It's a weird thing. A great deal of it didn't sit with me well at all, actually. It's funny, isn't it? There's no sort of university course for it. You're just expected to take it in your stride, and it's not. Your whole world changes, overnight. You put out a song, no one's ever heard of you. A few weeks later, it's #1 and everyone's heard of you. I know you're just supposed to take that in your stride as though that's normal. Well, you know, really? No, it's not normal at all. And it's the weirdest thing. You know, people were crying when they meet you, or, you know, or whatever. And then other people, you know, I was getting death threats. You know, what? Just, I just written a song. I've just written a song. Why would you want to kill me? But, yeah, I've just written a song.
And that was before social media, mate.
Yeah.
It's got worse now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there were people in the industry who kind of took you under their wing a bit, and one of those people was the band Queen, and particularly Freddie Mercury. So I know you were a huge fan, and there's a lovely story in the book. Well, you went to their concert, and they invited you to dinner. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, I went to see them. I'd actually gone over there to work with another band, and that all fell apart. So I found myself in Tokyo with not much to do. Saw a poster that saying Queen were playing that night, and I know I'd met them before. They weren't friends, so I just bought a ticket. I went and sat in the crowd and to watch the gig, and there was a commotion, and I didn't know that I was successful in Japan, and the commotion was me. So I got rescued by security and taken backstage. So I didn't really know them that well. I just saying hello, but they were really lovely. Took me under their wing. When the show was finished, they went out to a meal somewhere, one of those Japanese places where you sit down on the floor, much as I'm doing now, actually. But I don't like that food, you know. And I didn't want to be awkward and say, you know, this isn't for me. So I just sat there, just amazed to be out with Queen. The next thing I know, Freddie Mercury comes over and says, you know, are you all right? You're not eating anything? So I'm all right. Yeah, I'm just glad to be here. And I didn't realise what he was doing, but he sent off his limo to a McDonald's, and the next thing I know, the limo's turned up, and the big McDonald's just put him a lap. Yeah. He was so lovely, man. He was a really lovely person.
It is incredible. And there is a line, I always say, getting on the conveyor belt of celebrityhood or fame or whatever is difficult, but staying on it is harder. And there's a lovely quote in the book, and you say, becoming successful is not the glorious end of the journey, it's just the start of a far harder, more brutal, more dangerous next step. Whereas before, you had nothing to lose and all to gain, it's now the opposite. Explain that to people.
Well, if you're not successful, you have nothing to lose. You know, I had no education. I got no O levels, nothing like that. So absolutely nothing to fall back on, much to my mum and dad's disappointment. When you become successful, it is the other way around. Now you've got everything you ever wanted, but keeping it is so difficult. You know, every week there are new bands, new singers, all really good. You know, putting out great music, and there is an insatiable desire amongst the public, I think, to be into something new, the next new thing. Certainly amongst the media, they just want to be talking to the new thing all the time because it's exciting, and I understand that. And I was a recipient of that to begin with. But when you've had that moment, and you're no longer the person of the moment, then it becomes extremely difficult to stay there. You know, there is a stigma attached to people who've been around for a long time. You're no longer cool or relevant, and then it becomes really, really hard. So that need to reinvent yourself more than once to have any kind of a long career, and I've been doing this for 42 years now. That's really difficult. You know, it takes some doing. I honestly, it sounds big-headed, but I really don't mean it that way because I was very lucky. But becoming successful seemed relatively easy. You know, didn't seem to take that much at all. Staying there, well, I didn't actually. It's been up and down. I've been in and out a few times, but I'm there again now, which is good. But but it's really, really hard. Anyone that's been around a long time deserves a small amount of respect just for being able to do it. It's not easy.
Well, that'll be us two you're talking about then.
Respect from us. We understand that.
Thank you, Gary. Lovely talking to you.
The book is a fascinating read. It really is, Gary. And we know you have written it yourself.
Revolution, Gary Numan, the autobiography. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And lots of great pictures there. And Gary talks about his mum and dad a lot there, and the pictures tell a lot of stories as well.
And also, he says his mum and dad were really supportive. You know, they go through that kind of, you sure you don't want a real job, son? But then they still supported him when he carried on with his music, which is very nice.
Dr. Scott Miller's got a real job.